It's 6 p.m. on a Monday here in Korea. Welcome to our newscast. I'm Daniel Che. Let's begin with the headlines. President Park Geun-hye sits down with her Iranian counterpart Hassan Rouhani for the first ever summit between the two countries. Other than discussing the expected topics, the meeting resulted in more than 60 MOUs covering a broad range of sectors. With North Korea set to hold its first Workers' Party Congress in 36 years, the South Korean Defense Ministry reiterates all signs point to a nuclear test before or after the event. The CEO of Oxy Reckitt Benckiser delivers a public apology to Korean victims. But this comes 5 years after it was confirmed their household humidifier disinfectants led to at least 95 deaths. We begin with President Park Geun-hye's historic state visit to Iran. President Park sat down with her Iranian counterpart Hassan Rouhani for the first ever summit between the two countries. The two leaders reportedly discussed ways to boost bilateral ties on both the diplomatic and economic front. And the summit produced a slew of new deals. For more, we connect with our Song Ji-sun from Tehran, where she is traveling with the Presidential Press Corps. Ji-sun, take us through the press conference that just wrapped up between President Park Geun-hye and Iranian President Hassan Rouhani.
Good evening, Daniel. At a joint press conference, the two leaders announced 66 MOUs covering a broad range of sectors from power plant and railway construction to cultural cooperation. The deals amount to some $37 billion for Korea, which will participate in a large number of infrastructure projects with Iran as it looks to rebuild its economy after the lifting of international sanctions. President Park said Seoul will support Tehran as it rebuilds its economy and hopes to see bilateral trade volume rebound. President Rouhani says he hopes the trade volume will go back to pre-sanctions levels. He also commented on the North Korean nuclear issue. He said he supports changes on the Korean peninsula as Iran is against any type of nuclear development and vowed to cooperate in implementing sanctions on Pyongyang. Meanwhile, the two sides will also expand exchanges in high value-added sectors like culture and ICT. 2017 will be designated as a year for culture exchanges between the two countries, and Seoul and Tehran will each build a culture exchange and business complex in each other's country. President Rouhani also expressed hope for the resumption of direct flights between Seoul and Tehran as a way to expand people-to-people exchanges. President Park is also scheduled to sit down with Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who is Tehran's most powerful leader both in politics and religion. Korea and Iran are expected to strengthen their bilateral ties at this symbolic meeting, with President Park being the first non-Muslim female leader to visit Iran. Back to you in Seoul.
Thank you for that, Ji-sun. Well, President Park Geun-hye's summit with her Iranian counterpart Hassan Rouhani comes after Tehran's landmark nuclear deal to curb its nuclear activities. The meeting is sure to turn up the pressure on North Korea, and some have wondered whether it could lead the regime to take the same path as Iran. Connie Kim turns to some experts for their analysis.
President Park's visit to Iran is historic, not only for the expected economic and diplomatic outcomes. Experts are also predicting it'll have an effect on Iran's ties with North Korea.
Economic cooperation is the main focus of their summit, but the fact that the two countries have amicable ties puts pressure on Pyongyang. Although Seoul and Tehran are starting with economic cooperation, they could share information on the security front as the relationship grows stronger.
The summit underscores the opportunities presented by the landmark Iran nuclear deal, but many experts doubt the Iran case could be applied to North Korea, given the fundamental differences between the two.
Iran is in the early stages of its nuclear weapons development. It has not conducted a nuclear test, while North Korea has conducted 4. In addition, Iran has started developing its nuclear weapons program to become a leading power in the Middle East, while North Korea's motive is to survive in the international community.
North Korea and Iran have well-established ties. They've been providing each other with funds and technology for the development of weapons of mass destruction. In 2012, North Korea and Iran signed an agreement for technology and scientific cooperation, with Iran's missile experts reportedly helping the North successfully launch a long-range missile that year. A high-level Iranian delegation was reported to have observed North Korea's third nuclear test in 2013. Given that history, it's clear the summit between South Korea and Iran and the closer relationship it signifies could pose a threat to the relationship Iran has with North Korea. And that's prompted concerns Pyongyang will show its discontent with the situation by conducting another nuclear test during President Park's stay in Iran. If that happens, South Korea and the international community will have no choice but to go back to urging China to enforce sanctions on North Korea and to play a bigger role in pressuring North Korea to denuclearize. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
South Korea's three main political parties are busy trying to get their houses in order before the new National Assembly starts work at the end of the month. The ruling Saenuri Party's Won Yu-cheol held his final press conference as floor leader this morning, saying although he tried his best to improve communication between the party and the presidential office, he feels deeply responsible for the internal feuds that resulted in the party's crushing defeat in last month's general election. The party is set to select a new floor leader on Tuesday. The main opposition Minju Party of Korea will also select a new floor leader in an election Wednesday. Interim party leader Kim Jong-un is in Jeollado province to try and win back support from the traditionally liberal region, which turned its back on the party in the recent election. The centrist People's Party has started laying out its policy agenda under new floor leader Park Ji-won. It called for the passage of a revision to the medical malpractice law and a more cautious approach to a set of government-backed labor reform bills. The UNSC could adopt a draft statement pushing for tougher sanctions on North Korea as early as Monday. It may contain a warning against another nuclear test. There's speculation a fifth test is in the works, but experts say they can't work out what Pyongyang plans to do next. Kwon So-ah reports.
If adopted, it'll be the sixth statement against North Korea this year. The result of the UN Security Council's emergency meeting last Thursday after North Korea's unsuccessful test firing of another mid-range ballistic missile may be out as early as Monday or Tuesday. The draft statement obtained by AFP requests that all UN member states report no later than May 31st on the concrete measures they have taken to implement the sanctions resolution. It calls for the Security Council to intensify its work to strengthen enforcement of Resolution 2270, which was adopted in March after North Korea conducted its fourth nuclear test in January and fired a long-range missile a month later. The adoption is taking longer than expected as Russia requested for more time to review the text. According to a UN diplomat, the delay is attributed to Moscow wanting to display its presence as one of the 5 permanent members of the Council. Pundits say it's likely the new statement includes a warning against another nuclear test, as there are still concerns Pyongyang may conduct a fifth test before its Workers' Party Congress starts on Friday. Latest satellite imagery analyzed by U.S.-based North Korea monitoring website 38 North shows movement at the North's Punggye-ri nuclear test site, with vehicles and carts spotted at one of the site's portals. But signs of activity are at low levels, and the analysis says it's difficult to say whether a nuclear test is imminent. The website noted that North Korea's fourth nuclear test showed the regime's ability to keep test preparations fairly well under wraps. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
North Korea's Workers' Party Congress is just days away, and Seoul is on the lookout for a possible nuclear test by the North. South Korea's Defense Ministry believes Pyongyang is all set to conduct another test at any given moment. Kim Hyun-bin has the latest from Seoul's Defense and Unification Ministries.
South Korea's Defense Ministry on Monday reiterated that North Korea could conduct another nuclear test before or soon after a rare party congress slated for this week.
There is a possibility that the North could conduct an additional nuclear test and fire off a mid- or long-range missile around the party congress.
North Korea is scheduled to hold its first Workers' Party Congress in 36 years on Friday, and is widely seen as a chance for the regime's leader, Kim Jong-un, to solidify his grip on power. Experts also believe that Kim is trying to build up his accomplishments ahead of the meeting. North Korea conducted its fourth nuclear test in January, followed by an intercontinental ballistic missile launch the following month, and numerous mid-range ballistic missile tests in recent weeks. South Korea's Unification Ministry said that Seoul is closely monitoring the situation, but no particular signs of a test have been detected. That's in sync with analysis of recent satellite imagery by North Korea monitoring website 38 North, which says Saturday that there are signs of continued low-level activity at the North's Punggye-ri nuclear test site. It pointed to a few trailers and mining carts, but noted that it is impossible to tell whether the activity is related to maintenance or test preparations. The site did say, however, the North's nuclear test in January shows it has the ability to conduct another nuclear test relatively unnoticed, and with little or no warning. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
South Korea's current account surplus streak is now into its 49th straight month, the longest continuous period ever. The Bank of Korea says the country posted a surplus of over $10 billion in March. The figure is up from the roughly $7 billion surplus the previous month and is the highest since September last year. The surplus in March comes on the back of falling inbound and outbound shipments amid faltering global oil prices. Exports of goods fell 9.3% on-year in March, while imports tumbled almost 16%. The deficit in the service account, which includes tourism and shipping, also narrowed slightly in March from the previous month. The debate over the role of Korea's central bank should play in the process of corporate restructuring is heating up. Facing pressure from the government to step up its part in tackling corporate debt, the Bank of Korea seems to be engaged in a careful act of balancing. For details, let's turn to our Hwang Ji-hye.
Corporate restructuring is a crucial task the Korean economy is facing, and the Bank of Korea says it will actively play its part that's deemed necessary in the process. Governor Lee Ju-yeol on Monday urged senior central bank officials to closely study what kind of role the BOK can play. He also asked officials to thoroughly discuss issues related to raising capital for state-owned banks to support the government's restructuring drive in a task force of related ministries and regulatory bodies set to launch later this week. The governor's comments come as pressure piles up on the BOK to engage in providing the funds needed for overhauling the country's cash-strapped shipping and shipbuilding companies. Calls are growing, especially from the government, for the central bank to execute its authority to pump out more currency and buy up bonds of state banks, referred to as Korea's own quantitative easing. Over the weekend, Finance Minister Yoo Il-do said financing the costs of corporate restructuring should be done through policies that combine both fiscal and monetary measures. Ahead of those remarks, however, Bank of Korea Deputy Governor Yoon Myeon-sik said Friday that necessary funds for restructuring should come from state coffers. Experts say the governor's remarks on Monday are an effort to tame speculation that a rift may be opening up between the government and the central bank. And all eyes are now on what kind of measures, if any, the two chiefs, Minister Yu and Governor Lee, will be able to come up with when they meet in Frankfurt, Germany, for an annual meeting of the Asian Development Bank this week. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
The prices of new renewable energy and coal-produced energy will reach parity by the year 2020, according to the OECD's Nuclear Energy Agency. The agency forecasts that the levelized costs of electricity for onshore wind will be equal to or lower than those of thermoelectric power plants by then. This comes from an analysis of over 180 renewable and non-renewable plants in 22 countries. With a 3% reduction applied to renewable energy, the average onshore wind cost will fall around $75 per megawatt and lower than those of coal power at over $76. The cost of generation of renewable energy also remains on a downtrend amid eco-friendly initiatives taken by international community. 5 years after allegations began to emerge against Oxy's toxic humidifier disinfectants, the CEO of the company's Korean unit has finally delivered a formal public apology. But it's not what was said, but how and when it was said. It's far from producing a sense of closure for the many victims and their families who have suffered over the years. As our Hwang Ho-jun reports, many are questioning whether it's too little, too late.
Asthma, pulmonary fibrosis, cirrhosis. These are just some of the severe illnesses caused by chemicals allegedly used in a household humidifier disinfectant manufactured by Oxy Reckitt Benckiser. The connection was confirmed in 2011 after 4 pregnant women died of lung problems after using the product, which had been on the market for over 10 years. According to the Ministry of Environment, more than 200 people have suffered from the toxic sanitizer, including 95 related deaths. The CEO of Oxy Reckitt Benckiser held a press conference Monday, delivering a public apology to the victims and their families, pledging to spend more than $4 million in compensation.
We are deeply sorry. We want to make amends. We remain committed to Korea and Korean consumers and will work hard to regain your trust. Nevertheless, we understand that despite our efforts, nothing can completely ease the pain and suffering of the ICE's victims and their families.
The CEO's public move came after the prosecution recovered a controversial email late last month, denying any culpability in the case, which triggered strong criticism from the Korean public. Some victims attended the press conference in Seoul and expressed anger over the belated apology, saying that it does not provide solace from the pain they have experienced over the years. Meanwhile, the prosecution said they will conduct a complete and thorough investigation on Reckitt Benckiser products that have been sold to probe any further or additional damages. Hwang Ho-jun, Arirang News.
And with that, we've come to the end of this hour's newscast. As always, thank you for watching.